Hey everyone, and welcome back to another explainer. Today, we are unpacking a biological process that every single one of us has experienced. Seriously, think about the last time you got a paper cut, twisted your ankle, or caught a nasty bug. We almost always think of the swelling, the heat, and the pain as just a massive annoyance, something we want to pop a pill for and make disappear as fast as possible. But today, we're completely flipping that script. We're going to look at inflammation not as a disease, but as a highly precise, aggressively coordinated biological counterattack. Get ready, because this is the story of the battlefield right inside you.
Okay, let's quickly run through our battle plan for today. We'll start with the basics, figure out how the body actually recognizes a threat, and then trace the vascular and cellular responses. After that, we'll look at the chemical mediators pulling the strings before finally wrapping up with resolution and tissue repair. Let's jump in.
Section 1. The basics of inflammation.
So, what exactly do we mean when we say a tissue is inflamed? Well, looking at our medical source notes, inflammation is officially defined as a reaction of living, vascularized tissue. Its entire mission is to migrate defensive cells and molecules directly to the site of an injury to neutralize an offending agent. Now, it's absolutely crucial to understand that inflammation is a life-saving part of our innate immunity. But the collateral damage to our own tissues during this internal war, that's what leads to actual disease. In fact, think about how many conditions carry the suffix itis. Dermatitis, meningitis, appendicitis, that literally just means an inflammatory condition.
When you dive into classic histopathology notes, you'll constantly run into the historic Rule of 5 cardinal signs. These are the physical hallmarks of the battle. You've got rubor, which is redness, tumor, or swelling, calor, bringing the heat, dolor, which is that unavoidable pain, and functio laesa, meaning the temporary loss of function.
It's kind of mind-blowing how our understanding of this process has evolved over thousands of years. 2 millennia ago, the Romans actually coined the word inflammation, which stems from the Latin word for setting something on fire. From there, we go from the basic physical symptoms documented by Celsus in the 1st century, all the way down to the incredible microscopic cellular actions discovered by scientists like Metnikov and Lewis in the 19th and 20th centuries.
But here's the thing, not all inflammation is created equal. It's really a tale of two different wars. On one side, you have acute inflammation. This is a rapid, intense blitzkrieg. It lasts maybe hours to days and relies heavily on first responder cells called neutrophils. On the exact opposite side, we have chronic inflammation. This is the agonizing, grinding trench warfare of the immune system. It's a slow onset, can drag on for weeks or even years, and it uses totally different cells, mainly macrophages and lymphocytes.
Moving right along to Section 2, Recognizing the Threat.
First things first, what actually trips the alarm? Our sources highlight a massive array of these etiological agents or causes that can breach our borders. And we're not just talking about living microbes like bacteria or fungi. The body also mounts this defense against chemical pollutants, physical trauma like severe burns, foreign objects like a tiny shard of glass, and even endogenous threats made by our own bodies like cholesterol deposits or urate crystals. So, how does your body realize these invaders have broken in? Well, you have a highly sophisticated security system. Permanent sentinels like dendritic cells and macrophages are always on duty at the tissue level. They use these things called pattern recognition receptors to constantly scan for danger. They're specifically looking for PAMPs, which are molecular patterns shared by microbes, and DAMPs, which are distress signals released by the debris of your own damaged cells.
Section 3. The vascular response.
Once that alarm sounds, the very first thing the body has to do is open up the physiological supply lines. And it does this in two main ways. First up is vasodilation. The blood vessels literally widen, causing blood to pool at the injury site. That right there is what causes the redness and heat. Second, you get increased vascular permeability. The walls of your blood vessels basically become leaky, creating gaps so that defensive cells and plasma proteins can physically exit the bloodstream and pour into the tissue.
Now, this fluid leaking into your tissues is what causes the swelling, but it's important to know it comes in two distinct flavors. Let's unpack the medical jargon for a second. A transudate is basically a simple, watery fluid leak, protein poor, no cellular debris. But when you have active inflammation, you get an exudate. This is a heavy, thick fluid packed with protein, defending white blood cells, attacking microbes, and the literal necrotic debris of the battlefield.
Which perfectly transitions us to Section 4, the cellular defense.
It's a pretty brilliant metaphor when you think about it. Mobilizing the body's localized cellular defense is exactly like sending in specialized personnel wearing heavy protective gear to safely handle and neutralize a dangerous biohazard. It's serious business.
But getting those specialized white blood cells, the leukocytes, out of the fast-flowing bloodstream and into the tissue is an unbelievable step-by-step biological sequence. First, through margination, the leukocytes exit the fast central lane of the blood vessel and pull over to the edges. Next is rolling, where they sort of tumble along, briefly sticking and detaching from the vessel wall. Then comes adhesion, where they slam on the brakes and permanently grip the wall. And finally, transmigration, also called diapedesis, where they physically squeeze themselves through the gaps in the blood vessel and march straight into the war zone.
Once they're in the tissue, it is pure, brutal, hand-to-hand combat, known as phagocytosis. The leukocyte first recognizes and tightly binds to the enemy microbe. Then, it uses these finger-like extensions called pseudopods to literally engulf the invader, trapping it inside a tiny cellular bubble called a phagosome. Finally, it completely obliterates the threat from the inside out by flooding that bubble with highly reactive oxygen-free radicals and acidic enzymes.
Section 5. The chemical mediators.
You might be wondering, how does the body coordinate this massive, chaotic army? It's all about chemical communication signals. Take histamine, for example. It's a preformed mediator that immediately triggers that initial vasodilation and leakiness we talked about. Then you have cytokines, which act as the broader signaling network regulating the entire response. There are also arachidonic acid metabolites, which mediate things like pain and complement proteins circulating in the blood just waiting to tag microbes for destruction. It's an incredibly complex web of signals.
And finally, Section 6. Resolution and tissue repair.
Because every battle has to end, right? Ultimately, there are a few ways this can play out. The absolute best-case scenario is resolution. The enemy is destroyed, the chemical signals just naturally fade away, and macrophages sweep in to clean up the debris. Now, if the threat is stubborn, it might progress into that grinding, chronic inflammation. But usually, the body moves to repair and healing. It desperately tries to restore normal structure and function, although a lot of the time, it has to patch the area with tough connective tissue, leaving a lasting scar as proof of the conflict.
Which brings us to our final takeaway today. We reach for anti-inflammatory medications like ibuprofen so casually, just to turn off the pain and swelling. But as we've explored today, those aren't just annoying symptoms. They're the literal mechanical gears of your body healing itself. So, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. If inflammation is this life-saving, absolutely essential military defense for our body, how do we perfectly balance suppressing the painful symptoms without accidentally disarming our own internal army? Definitely something to chew on the next time you get a scrape or a fever. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.